Hi everyone, my name is Arsine Khayoyan. I am the senior economist here at K2 Economics. A brief background about me: I have a Ph.D. in economics and public policy. I've been doing this line of work for the last 10 years, providing expert witness testimony and preparing economic evaluation reports regarding damages. And I recently decided to do a little Q&A. I posted it on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And the purpose of this video is I just want to answer a couple of your questions that I've received. And if you have any further questions that are not covered in this video, send them to our LinkedIn, our website, or our Instagram, and we will answer them in the next video. So let's get started. The first question I have here is, what is work-life expectancy? Is it the same as age of retirement? Work-life expectancy and the age of retirement are not the same thing, although it's very understandable why you may think that. Basically, work-life expectancy is the number of years of active employment an individual has based on three factors. These three factors are whether you are currently employed or not, your highest level of educational attainment, and your gender. So based on these three things, we determine a work-life expectancy that is from the date of an incident, whether that incident is an injury, a termination, some sort of a medical negligence. From that date of injury, the incident, what is the active years of employment an individual had at that time? And a 40-year-old man may have a 20-year work-life expectancy, but that does not mean that they are going to retire at age 60. They could very well retire at 62, 65, 67, what have you. But that means they have only 20 years where they will actively be working. They might retire at 65, but take 5 years here and there off to change a career. They might get laid off from work. Different things may factor age of retirement, but the active work-life expectancy is basically what it is when you are actually working. So when we're doing damages, we do front load these. So that means if we have someone who has damages starting at age 40 and they have a 20-year work-life expectancy, the damages will end when that person is 60 years old, but that does not mean they will necessarily retire at that age. Hope that clarifies it. If it doesn't and you want me to expand on that, I'll be happy to do that either through another video or in person if you want to call me and talk over the phone. Okay, next question. What interest rate do you use? Okay, this is a great question. If you do follow our website or our LinkedIn, you will see that we had a dedicated video regarding interest rates. And in that video, we do discuss how a different interest rate can significantly change your damages. If you have significant future damages, an interest rate difference of 1 or 2% can mean basically translate into hundreds of thousands of dollars when you come down to present value. So when someone's talking about what interest rate do you use, they're basically asking me what discount rate do you use? Because when a plaintiff receives a lump sum award, theoretically, they could get that award, invest it, and every year accumulate interest on that. All that interest would have been an overpayment by the defendants. Therefore, to account for that, what an economist does, we discount all that interest that an award could potentially receive, and we deduct it from the damages. And that's what we mean when we say damages are in present value. Therefore, when they get that amount invested, the interest they can receive is basically what those future damages are going to be. And the interest rates that people use, there's basically two main different methods. One method is economists can look at the historical difference between a growth rate and an interest rate, and that's called a net discount rate, and they apply a net discount rate. That is not the approach I use. Most economists rely on the current rates. So I rely on the US Treasury yields, the bond rates. Those are considered risk-free, and the law does not require the plaintiff be a financial savant to be able to get the different interest rates. So we look at the risk-free rate, and the most commonly used one is the US Treasury yields. And basically right now for the long-term interest rates is about 2.3, 2.4%. That's very low. It's not a record-breaking low. Last year was right during the pandemic. It really dropped, probably record lows. But it is lower than what it was, let's say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you could have had 7, 8%. In the 90s, there was probably 7, 8% interest rate, whereas right now, the best you can do on a long-term US bond is about 2.4%. And the reason I use that, because if an individual receives an award, It doesn't matter if in the 1995, if the interest rate was 8%, they can't get that 8% right now. Right now, a US Treasury bond pays you 2.4%, and that is what I use to discount the damages to present value. Next question. Do you calculate loss of earnings differently for self-employed plaintiffs? Yes, I do. I actually don't only look at self-employed, employed. I divide them even further. I look at employed people by private companies, public employees, and then self-employed. So for a privately employed individual, I ask for their earnings records. I ask for their W-2s. In California, we're not allowed to ask for tax records, so I do not ask for them. But if I am providing them willingly, I will rely on them as well. What I do is I look at least going back 5 years, I look at their earning records, their current earnings, to come up with an annual earnings basis. Once we have that, the next step is assuming that there's going to be future damages, how we're going to grow this earnings basis, because rarely do salaries stay completely flat. There's always some sort of growth, whether it's for inflation, cost of earning, merit, what have you not. There's always some sort of growth that comes along usually with earnings. So what I do is I look at their historical earnings. Sometimes, people get promoted at the same time every year, every anniversary they get a merit increase. I look at what those increases have been historically for that individual. What I also do is I look at the industry that an individual is in. So if it's a trucker, I would look at the trucking industry, how the trucking industry is projected to grow over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And based on all those information, his demonstrated earnings and the industry earnings, I come up with an annual growth rate to apply to the damages going forward. Now for public employees, and these are people that are employed by the city, the county, or the state, it's very different. All public employees are, not all, but great majority of public employees are unionized. This means that they have what's called a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, which is an agreement that the union and the government make regarding, it regards everything, but one of the things they discuss is pay increases. So they have these things called salary schedules, where it's explicitly stated when and how much a salary increase is going to be. Oftentimes, public employees also have what's called step programs. So if an individual is hired, let's say on May 1st on step 1, the following year on May 1st, they'll go to step 2, and then they'll go to step 3, step 4, step 5, so on and so forth. So for these cases, primarily I just rely on the union contract, because it tells you in black and white, this is what their merit increase is going to be. We're going to have a 2% cost of living index, so you know exactly what's going to be. I will rely on the historical and the current union contract to see what the average increases are going to be, if I need to project growth rates that go beyond when the union contract ends. And that's primarily what I rely on when I'm looking at public employees. Now to get to your question about self-employed employees, yes, these are different because, as you know, it's not always W-2s. What I do when I have a self-employed plaintiff, I basically I can't ask for tax records, as I said. So if I'm not provided any tax records, I will look at their gross revenues, sales receipts, and then deduct basically whatever expenses they have. So it could be fixed costs such as rent, insurance, and then it could be other variable costs such as the cost of doing business. I deduct the fixed and variable costs to come up with a net income, and that is the income. That net income is the annual basis that I will use to calculate the future loss of earnings. Okay, the next question, I think this is going to be the final question, is what is earning capacity? Is it the same as your demonstrated earnings? It's a great question. The answer is no, although I could see why you would think that. Earning capacity is exactly what it sounds like. It's the capacity to earn money. Let's say if you have a young 30-year-old mother who is not working, who's not looking for employment, she's, raising children, and if something happens, let's say we have a wrongful death situation, that does not mean just because she was not earning money at the time that she can never earn money, that she would have never worked, that she would have never earned money. So in cases where we have zero demonstrated earnings, sometimes economists can rely on earning capacity. And this happens most often with minors. Let's say if we have a birth injury, or a young minor has suffered some sort of an injury which will prevent them from working in the future. Obviously, in these cases, we don't have W-2s and earning records to rely on because they are minors. So we would rely on an earning capacity. We would say, well, we assume they might have gotten high school degree, bachelor's degree, or whatever, and then look at the average earnings that people in that, with that educational attainment make. And so that would be an earning capacity. It's definitely preferred to rely on demonstrated earnings when available, but if demonstrating earnings are not available because either we have a minor or we have somebody who was not working at the time but maybe plan to do in the future, then we would rely on earning capacity. I hope that explains it. Again, if any of the questions you want me to expand on, you guys always message us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or through our website. You can also call us. All initial phone consultations are free of charge. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions regarding finance, I have a partner, Jack, who deals with finance, wage and hour, big data, and he'll be more than happy to answer your questions regarding anything along those lines. I plan to do some of these videos more in the future, so keep sending us any questions you might have. I enjoy doing them, and thank you for watching. Bye.